Hi guys, Gaming Khan here, and I have another Warhammer 40k Battlesector guide for you. This time we will be covering how to play a glorious melee focus army in Company Captain difficulty, just like the Emperor intended. Melee is a lot harder because it is a very all-in style of gameplay, and if you go all in at the wrong time, you can be severely punished. It does have some distinct advantages though. You generate a lot more momentum, which means more attacks and more command points for command abilities. You also have access to higher AP values and high hit chance at a relatively low cost. And most of all, your army moves as a single unit. With range army, your front line is a lot more isolated and so takes the brunt of the enemy's focus fire. But because melee-based armies stay close together, the Tyranids tend to spread out their damage. You also need very few points to bring out the full potential of this build. I do recommend getting the DLC though, because without it, the melee unit pool is really small. You do get the Librarian and the Death Company eventually, but you get them so late in the game that you barely get to enjoy using them before the campaign is over. So, obviously, the core of the army are the following two units: Assault Marines and Aggressors. Assault Marines are your bread and butter. They are cheap, expendable units. They don't cost requisition, and you only need to invest in the assault tactics skill in the skill tree to bring out their max potential. You can go further down in the skill tree if you want, as it allows your assault marines to do damage outside of the assault tactic buff, but I find that if you play around its cooldown, you'll be just fine. Also, weapon upgrades negates their greatest strength in this difficulty, which is their low cost. With assault tactics and a rear attack, they can kill 5 models of swarm units and in some situations even take a model from 3 model elite units, something that even Dreadnoughts struggle to do. Aggressors are world beaters, and everything in their skill tree is viable. Their only weakness is relatively low melee accuracy, but that can be overcome with veterancy. They are amazing at killing swarm units, they make Hormagaunts obsolete, they do massive damage in melee, allowing them to crush both single entity and 3 model elite units.
In their numbers, they will not overwhelm us!
Flamestorm gauntlets are a must on these guys. Flamers generate the most momentum and aggressors become the highest killing unit in your army. I don't count Dreads as melees because their melee damage is not high enough to be impactful on this difficulty. Remember from my last video, damage that leads to the most number of dead model is more important in this difficulty. Dreadnoughts melee attacks have very weak splash damage and is not high enough to be a threat to the beefier enemy units. Their main role is to be a walking, fire-spouting wall that your units hide behind when there is no other cover available. Land speeders are essential for melee builds. Because melee is an all-in build, you never want to charge in blind. You need to know what is coming behind the units that you're about to charge. That way you can have an idea of how much damage you will take on the enemy's turn and whether it would be worth it to commit now or reposition your army. If you have the DLC, then the Sanguinary Guards are your main heavy hitters. They kill everything. 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 If you don't have the DLC, then Carleon, Verity, and Quindar are your main heavy hitters. Getting the Thunderhammer for Carleon and Power Sword for Sister Verity becomes a must without the DLC. Your skill priorities are as follows: Righteous Exhortation, followed by Assault Tactics, then Heroes of Escalion if you have the DLC, and then Flamestorm Gauntlets. Rushing Flamestorm Gauntlets for Aggressor is critical as it completely nullifies Hormagaunts and allows aggressors to steamroll straight through every single swarm unit in the game. Once you have your Flamestorm Gauntlets, you should immediately rush Scions of Sanguinius. At this point, you are running into Tyranid warriors, and they gain an extra action point every time they drop a model. With Scions, even your Assault Marines will be able to tank their damage on this difficulty, thereby denying them the extra turn. I even add the old ways later in the game. If you do have the DLC, then getting the Encarmine access on the Sanguinary Guard is a viable option but not necessary. I only get them because I like the blood-crazed berserker with a giant axe archetype in my games, so I always get them for the fun/cool factor. At the end of the day, the fun factor is the only factor that determines the viability of a build. Like seriously, if you're not having fun, why are you even playing the game? Terminators, unfortunately, do not perform well at this difficulty at all. They don't tank well enough, nor do they do enough damage to constitute taking over aggressors, or even the Dreadnoughts. Considering that on this difficulty you get 300 to 500 fewer army points per mission, they just cost too much to be worth it. Unless you're trying to make your company captain's difficulty even more challenging, I advise you stay away from recruiting them. Your melee army's goal are to identify isolated pockets of the enemy and overwhelm them with lightning-fast attacks. This means the best way to play a melee army is to identify a weak flank and commit all your forces to overwhelm it. A good opening move with the melee army is to surround your sanguinary priest with all your jump pack units during the deployment phase, pop Righteous Exhortation, and watch your jump pack squadrons thunder murder everything for the next 2 turns. Righteous Exhortation is an AoE buff, so having multiple Assault Marines increases your total damage output exponentially. Always move your priest first, heal, and buff as many units as possible before moving any other unit. You want to use hammer and anvil tactics. What I mean is that you want to trap your enemies between your front line and your jump pack troops. You accomplish this by using your aggressors and dreads as bait. Wait for the enemy to get close enough before you jump behind them and finish them off. It is absolutely critical that you always attack the enemy from the rear or the flanks with your Assault Marines. They are not very good in a frontal charge. If the enemy is not in the range for you to get behind them or on their flanks, then pull your front line back further and just wait another turn. Patience is key with melee, and you must attack only when the time is right. Tyrants are made for melee, so you must charge in a way that ensures that the fewest enemies can countercharge you. This requires you to know what forces are coming in behind the enemy you are targeting. So scouting is key to figuring out when you can go in or not. If the priest is the first unit you should move every turn, then the second is your land speeder. They have excellent awareness range and vision, and their mobility allows them to take a peek and get out safely in 1 turn. Inceptors can fulfill the same role, albeit in a slightly different manner. They do have a shorter sight range, so they have to take a more riskier approach to scouting. However, they are a lot tankier and punchier than speeders, so if you run out of movement points while scouting, they can not only take a few hits, but dish back even harder and then jump out to safety.
Only angels have the right to fly.
Play around your jump pack cooldowns. If they are on cooldown, shoot your pistol and fall back to cover. Basically, never melee without assault tactics plus jump pack cooldowns. Extra movement from 100 momentum is invaluable for a melee-focused army. Spend momentum on surge only when killing high-threat enemies or you're about to be overwhelmed by enemy swarms. Like I mentioned in my last video, you don't need to wipe out swarms, so don't use your surge to wipe out broken swarms. Also, in some situation you have no choice but to attack from the front, likely due to a Trigon popping up in the middle of your army. Remember that if you chain multiple unit attacks as quickly as possible, you can kill the enemy unit before its retaliation animation, and this allows you to avoid taking any damage at all. So, that's my guide for a glorious melee focused army in company captain difficulty, so go out there and make the Red Angel proud. If this video gets enough views and likes, I will make a mission by mission series on how I ran a melee focused army on this difficulty. Or maybe I'll just do it anyway because I need something to do until Chaos Gate is released. Thank you for your time. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada yada, and I will see y'all next time.